I'm going to tell you a little more about Sami Al-Arian's case. First, I'm going to show a very short video that summarizes it, and then I'll give some details on this one.
About a basic American right, the freedom of speech.
This is the First Amendment case, and that you have the right to be a member, you have a right to be a supporter, you have a right to take positions based on the violence. This is all First Amendment stuff. This is pure First Amendment stuff.
For 5 months, the prosecutors laid out in detail a case painting Al-Arian as the North American leader of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. But as News Channel Steve Andrews tells us, once the government rested its case, so did Al-Arian's defense without calling one witness.
The United States of America versus Sami Al-Arian. I'll read the paragraph for which we have a verdict. As to the offense of conspiracy to murder or maim persons at places outside the United States, we, the jury, find the defendant, Sami Al-Arian, not guilty.
The judge started reading 20 minutes of not guilty verdicts. It was unbelievable.
There was not one guilty verdict in 51 counts for 4 of these men. That's 200 counts. They didn't have a guilty verdict.
Mr. Al-Arian was not directly linked to any of the violent acts that we showed during the trial.
Prosecutors admitted their case lacks hard evidence linking any of the defendants to those violent acts, but they say that in a conspiracy, such evidence is not required.
Why did you vote not guilty on just about every count? I didn't see the evidence. There was no evidence against these guys. Not enough.
You know, a lot of it, I felt it was hearsay.
What would it take for a guilty verdict? Evidence.
No tomorrow, no tomorrow. And I find it kind of funny, I find it kind of sad.
Okay, so to this day, a lot of you probably know it's been almost 8 years, and he is not yet a free man, and he's currently in house arrest where he's been for the past 2 years. And I'm going to tell you just a little more details about his treatment. As there was no risk at all that he would be a flight risk, but nonetheless, he went into a maximum security federal prison in Bolton, Florida, 75 miles from his family. He was placed in a special housing unit, which is where convicted criminals who have caused problems in prison are usually the people placed there. And then Sami, as a pre-trial detainee, he was placed in this. It was, I think, his cell where he was in 23 hours a day. It was just slightly bigger than my pantry at home. And when he got out of his cell, he was for an hour, and it was in a little bit larger cell, no sunshine ever. Sometimes there was a period of months he was in 24-hour lockdown. He was in solitary confinement, had no contact with anybody, but nonetheless, anytime he entered his cell, he was forced to remove his clothes and submit to a very intrusive strip search. The cell was very cold. He wasn't given jackets or any way to get warm. And as you heard, he had very limited access to his attorney. There's a lot of interesting stories, but and another one, when he went to see his attorney, he was shackled and handcuffed behind his back. And he was not, the guards refused to carry his legal documents, so they bent him over, he'd carry him on his back, and he walked that way to meet with his attorney. This was pre-trial, and he's trying to get ready for the trial. His isolation was further increased by this limited telephones. He did one 15-minute call a week. And I believe you heard there was a period of about 6 months where he wasn't given any calls at all. It was very difficult for his family to go and visit him. It was, further? Okay, sorry. Because it was an all-day trip, I think, for them, coming and going and spending time in the prison. Sometimes they'd get there and they couldn't see him anyway. And then the visits were all non-contact visits. They're all through glass every time. Some of the government tactics, where you've heard about a lot of these already. One is the wiretapping for 10 years. Another you heard about, his brother-in-law, who was jailed for, I think, 3.5 years. Again, secret evidence, no charges. When the trial started, when the trial started, they brought a lot of irrelevant and unrelated evidence. For example, they showed websites that he never visited. They brought in witnesses from Israel who had nothing to do with him at all. They showed videos of bus bombings. Again, the prosecutors admitted he had nothing to do with those incidents, but nonetheless, they brought it as evidence. And they have paid witnesses also. And the question is why? You've heard a lot of that already. One is the government doesn't like political activists, especially effective ones. And Sami was very effective. As you heard, he's an effective organizer. He lobbied very effectively, and he used the system well. And we heard about the secret evidence law, which, had it not been for the coincidence of 9/11, might be repealed today. And then I think the other large reason was he's a Palestinian, and he was a very vocal and effective advocate for Palestinian rights. And I think the political nature of his prosecution can probably be seen in the events at USF, where he was, the University of South Florida in Tampa, where he was a tenured professor. And there were Zionists on the campus that were trying to get him terminated for years. And they weren't able to do it until he went on, he was interviewed on the O'Reilly show. And after that, he was banned from campus. And they were threatening to terminate him. But the AAUP and other unions spoke up, prevented that from happening. But then the USF offered him $1 million to resign. And political pressure stopped that from happening. And then, Jeb Bush, at the time, he was the governor of Florida, and he told the chairman of the board of trustees at USF that he would take care of it. And then another coincidence, 6 months later, Sami was indicted and